Okay, hello. So what you just watched was a little sort of summary diagram that I took out of another textbook that I'm calling the flow of funds. This is an important picture, and basically it captures the essence of, let's see, what is it? It's in your textbook, of course, and it is pages, oh, here it is. It's the 4 pillars section in chapter 18, which is pages starting at 595 and basically going up to 607, 608. Okay, so it pretty much covers most of chapter 18, this one picture. Everything in this chapter can be summarized in this picture. That's why I'm giving it to you. So when you have to study for your examination, you focus on this picture. Right? That's what you memorize, sort of you keep in your mind. And then all this other stuff in the textbook is basically just a bunch of examples to illustrate this in more detail. Okay? The key points in this graph are first the two rectangles. There's a rectangle on the left-hand side, a rectangle on the right-hand side. Basically, all this is saying is, what is a financial market? Right? Why do we have banks? Why do we have credit unions? Why do we have these like finance companies to help you finance buying large products? Why do we have investment dealers? Okay, like what's their economic function? Right? Why do they exist? What greater purpose do they serve? And the answer is simple. All of these things that your textbook talks about are existing for one purpose, and that is basically to move funds from those players in the economy, if you like, or sources, or whatever you want to call them, who have a surplus of funds, to the other players in the economy who have a deficit or a shortage of funds. Right? So, I mean, the simplest example is you think of grandma, and grandma keeps $20,000 in cash under her mattress. She has a surplus of funds, an excess, big accumulation of funds. So the purpose of a financial market is to try to get those funds to someone else who, let's say, is a 19-year-old Brock University student who needs to borrow money to pay for his or her tuition. That would be a player who needs to borrow money. And so financial markets basically exist as sort of mechanisms to move money from the surplus people who have too much money, don't need it all today, the savers, if you will, and somehow get those funds to the people who have a shortage of funds today, the borrowers. And that's it. I mean, that is the essence of all of these things. Now, the big thing that your chapter is talking about is that circle on the top called financial intermediaries. Okay? It is possible through that direct financing for an individual to go directly into a stock market. That's a financial market. Or into a bond market. Directly into a bond market. But most people don't. Like, take myself, for instance. I don't have tons of money. I really don't. And let's say I want to buy some stock. I mean, a direct finance would say I directly go to some sort of broker and buy some stock. But normally what happens is people don't directly go to bond markets or buy bonds, because these bonds might be issued in like billions of dollars. And so most individuals don't have billions of dollars. So what normally happens is a whole bunch of people sort of get together, and then they can pool all of their money together, right? So my money plus all of your money, And then together we'll have, let's say, enough money all together to go and buy that, billion-dollar bond. Now, that's basically what all these financial intermediaries do. They create value for their customers through basically this aggregation process. They collect money from me, they collect money from you, because I have a bank account and all of you have bank accounts. So they're collecting it all from us, and then they can go in and buy up that billion-dollar bond. Right? That's sort of the arrow going from the financial intermediaries down to the financial markets. And the same thing you have with mutual funds. Right? Hundreds of people, thousands of people all invest in a mutual fund. That would be like run by like TD Bank, for instance. Well, TD Bank is playing the role of the financial intermediary. Now that they've got, maybe $9 billion from all the investors across Canada who have bought into this fund, then they can go into the financial market and buy stocks and buy bonds. Right? And so that is in essence how that works. And you see let's say, for instance, you're General Motors, you need to borrow money, so you issue new bonds, right? So then the Toronto Dominion Bank buys those bonds, so from financial intermediary, buys the bonds in the financial market, and then because this is a new bond, the money then goes to General Motors. So instead of saying Neil Tokar writes a check for $1 billion to General Motors for a brand new bond, what happens is Neil Tokar and 5 million other people all pool our money at this financial intermediary, call it TD Bank, TD Mutual Funds. Then the TD Mutual Fund, that financial intermediary, on behalf of all the investors, goes into the bond market and buys that new bond. And when it does that, it gives the money over to General Motors. So in other words, we don't go directly from Neil to General Motors. It goes through this intermediary in the middle. And that's what all these other things are doing. Whether it be banks, credit unions, these finance companies, these special lending companies, that is in essence what they do. Okay? So I hope that makes sense. That's the big picture. I love this picture. It's actually from a third-year textbook, but it summarizes it so nicely that's why I included it. Okay, so that is my video on the flow of funds. It's coming from the people with the surplus, going to the people who have a shortage of funds today. They have to borrow. And that's it.